Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. You know, of late, I've been doing a lot more stories about Susan Aitkin. She, of course, is the leader of Glasgow City Council. She's becoming more prominent. Perhaps she wants to make a name for herself. She certainly seems to be pushing herself forward to make sure that stories are revolving around her. She's been at the centre of several things. Now, the latest one, of course, is that she is trying to blame Labour for all the problems Glasgow is experiencing. But, of course, the SNP have been in charge for 6 years now. Now, I know, yes, they did inherit some problems from Labour, but surely the SNP, who keep telling people that they're the bestest ever, would surely have managed to solve these problems in 6 years. It can't be that hard, can it? Unless, of course, you're very stupid. But you're bringing in a ULEZ zone and a congestion charge when Glasgow doesn't really have bad air or congestion. So we know it's all just for the money, because they are absolutely desperate for money. One of the reasons, of course, is they have to pay for 2 seats to send Susan Aitkin to Dubai. Not that she's going with anybody. She just needs, 2 seats. But we shall have a look at this as this woman tries to raise her profile and become the new face of the SNP. And I've got to say, what a face. It is, as my mother would say, a face like a well-scalped arse. Let's have a look. Now, before we do get into this, I will ask, please do hit the subscribe button. It's massively, massively important. We keep getting pushed down because of the content. We need your support. Your support is everything to the channel. So do please hit the subscribe button and like the video. Now, I've done lots of videos about Susan Aitkin, as I've mentioned. And one of the ones recently was about her wanting to go to Dubai. But I do feel I need to issue sort of a public service announcement. And I hope that, Susan, if you are watching, please take note. If you do go to Dubai, please remember they don't have a Greggs. So you are going to have a terrible time out there. Anyway, Susan Aitkin is slapped down after blaming Scottish Labour for the state of Glasgow, despite the SNP being in charge for 6 years. Unfortunately, not that kind of slapdown. Not that I approve, of course, of anything like that against women. It's just, well, if I'd seen it, I would be utterly appalled, of course. But, Anyway, the SNP council leader reacted angrily to claims it was her fault that there were overflowing bins and filthy streets across Glasgow, and instead laying the blame on Scottish Labour. Yeah, you've been in charge for 6 years. You're not telling me that the bins haven't been emptied in 6 years, are you? Look at that, there you mouth open, ready in case something falls in. SNP council leader Susan Aitkin was slapped down on social media after suggesting Scottish Labour were to blame for the deteriorating state of Glasgow. Clearly wrong. I'm not saying that Labour got anything right. I mean, Jesus, Labour left a terrible problem. But you've had 6 years, And it is without considering that the SNP executive have been ruling Scotland since 2007. The local authority leader reacted angrily to suggestions from Labour councillor George Redmond that her party aren't lifting a finger to fix major environmental failings in the city. And he added that bins are overflowing, streets are getting filthier, and bus services are on the brink of collapse. And on top of that, of course, you've got the rat problem, which they're mentioning now. Rats are also infesting some communities, and with worried Glasgow residents reporting rodents the size of chihuahuas, and low emission zones have also caused concern amid thousands of people being locked out of the city centre. I mean, the rat problem alone is more than just the visual thing of seeing a rat. There's the disease that goes with it. And the very fact that the rats are there shows a general malaise in the entire cleanliness and hygiene of the entire city. And this is all directly the SNP. No one else can be blamed. They are the ones responsible. 6 years. They can't blame this on Labour. And of course, this ULEZ zone in the middle is pointless. The only part of Scotland, or the dirtiest part of Scotland in terms of air quality, is the bus station in Glasgow. And even that still falls below the danger level that the government have set. But it goes to show that the real sort of polluters in Glasgow are the buses. C'est la vie, eh? C'est la vie. Anyway, Miss Aitkin shrugged off the criticism as she claimed that the current state of the city was the fault of Labour administration from before 2017, meaning her leadership has not improved anything since then. She wrote on social media, "Air pollution kills Glaswegians. She has no proof of that. She's making an open claim and yet cannot point to any part of Glasgow that breaches air quality standards. Not one area, not even the dirtiest bit, which, as I say, was the bus station. Glasgow Labour didn't lift a finger to change that. Didn't need to. It's clean air. Or to modernise cleansing or bus services for that matter. Well, why would they? Why would they? Beforehand, the cleansing was working. We knew the cleaning was working because there weren't rats everywhere. It's your party that's seen the growth of rats. Both the ones on the streets and the ones in Holyrood. Boom, boom. Didn't plan that one. That came out on time. Anyway, Miss Aitkin was accused of attempting to rewrite history, as it was pointed out that her administration challenged the equal pay claims in the Court of Session, which they lost and were finally told to hand out 770 million. And her party have cut back on funding for councils over the last decade. But of course it wasn't her party. She's lying again. Imagine that, people. Someone in the SNP not being entirely honest. Who would have thought it, eh? Who would have thought it? Scottish Labour Glasgow MSP Paul Sweeney said Glasgow City Council under SNP administration sought leave to appeal the court judgment on unequal pay, and it was only after appeal rights were exhausted that Glasgow City Council agreed to settle. In other words, it was the SNP who said, no, we've got to go to court, we've got to appeal it because we don't want to pay this out. So let's tell the truth here, people, and it wasn't in the gift of councillors to settle in defiance of Glasgow City Council legal advice, which says a lot about local democracy. According to Councillor Aitkin, it is not the Scottish Government's job to clean up Glasgow's mess. Seemingly oblivious to the fact it was the Scottish Government sets 80p in every pound in the Glasgow City Council budget and has starved it of funds for over a decade. Out of the 16 years that they've been on, nearly 17 years that they've been in charge now. And they've underfunded it at every stage. And not just Glasgow, them all. Underfunded them all. Quite a contrast to when Labour Scottish Executive negotiated with the Treasury to write off Glasgow City Council's municipal housing debt under Gordon Brown, unlocking a massive social housing regeneration programme. Not that the SNP can do that, because that involves helping people. And the SNP, well, they don't do that, do they? They don't help people. They want to make people's lives miserable and poverty-ridden and utterly unlivable. They want them to live in squalor. They want this. This is policy. This is policy. They want this so that they can turn around and be the saviours. Drive everything down to the worst it can be and then say, follow the SNP. We will lead you to independence and a utopia. Well, it isn't going to be, because you're seeing the world as the SNP see it. That is what they have in mind. The SNP destroy everything, and they're leaving a scorched earth policy. Glasgow resident and campaigner Jim Monaghan pointed out that the SNP can't point score over the gender pay scandal because they were involved in a similar issue across the country. He wrote, "Your occasional reminder that at every point of the equal pay dispute over many years, SNP and Labour agreed on every step. When Labour in power and the SNP, and after the SNP took over, you will not find a single instance of Susan or SNP challenging the moves on equal pay at any point. Also, this happened in every council, not just Glasgow, including the ones where the SNP were in power. And at the time, he says, I was in East Ayrshire, where an SNP Tory coalition were the ones discriminating against women. And boy, have they always discriminated against women. And now the SNP, of course, are even trying to cancel women. And that is how bad it is. That's how the SNP view women. They lie. Of course they lie. And that woman, Susan Aitkin, a god-awful woman who has somehow managed to inveigle herself into politics and got power and will not give it up without a fight, and is a greedy, grasping, nose in the trough, corporate pig, basically. Snuffle, public money, send me to Dubai. Go one way, love. Just go one way and stay there. I'm coming up. The problem with Scottish politics, and particularly the SNP, is that every time you lift something up, a rock or a stone or something either insectivorous or writhing falls out of it. something scuttles off into a dark recess or lies crawling slowly away. Because they're all like that. They're all liars. None of them will stand up. None of them have got a spine, you know. None of them have got anything in there that they will stand up and take ownership of their failures. They always have to blame someone else. And yet they're all the same. They're all odious. They're all disgusting, you know, one way or another. There's very few of them that are actually decent in any way. We've pointed out a few today as it happens. Fergus Ewing, very respected. And of course, Lisa Cameron, who is standing up for the victims of Grady rather than backing Grady. So there are a few good ones. But on the whole, there's an awful lot of loathsome, crawling, odious pieces of human filth. And they sit there and they blame others, they blame others and they blame others. Meanwhile, the likes of Glasgow is going to rack and ruin. There's disease, there's poverty, there's rats everywhere. And they're busy blaming a regime that existed 6 years ago. Well, it wasn't the Labour Party that created the rat problem. And the chief rat now wants to go to Dubai. Why do people keep voting for these people? They must have eyes. They must look around the city of Glasgow, see how awful it is, see how they can't get into the city centre because they're poor and can't afford to upgrade their car. See now they want a congestion charge so they can't even afford to go to work. And they keep voting for these people. It's like turkeys voting for Christmas. Well, at the next election, if the people of Glasgow vote in the SNP, you can have no sympathy for them. You can say, well, you've voted them in. Whatever bad happens now is your own fault. You've seen what's coming and you've still voted for it. So you must like it. You must want that. You must want poverty. You must want misery. You must want an awful, awful life. And of course, the problem is the people with money, the people who are mobile, the people who can, will get up and walk away. And that makes the problem worse because they take with it all their wealth and capital. And you end up in a poverty-stricken state. And who could blame them for going? Anyway, I should stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you've seen here on the channel, do please hit that subscribe button. It's really, really important. And like the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and let's keep Susan Aitkin out of a Greggs for 10 minutes. Bye.